Imagine a country sealed off from the world for over 2 centuries. A society of samurai and shoguns suddenly thrust onto the global stage. This isn't a fantasy novel. This is the story of Japan in the mid-19th century. In just a few decades, it would transform from a feudal nation into a modern industrial powerhouse. This is the story of the Meiji Restoration, an era of breathtaking change that didn't just reshape a nation, but redefined what it meant to be Japanese. So how did they do it? How did Japan reinvent itself? Our story begins in 1853. For more than 200 years, Japan, under the rule of the Tokugawa shogunate, had a strict isolationist policy called sakoku. Contact with the outside world was minimal, limited to a small Dutch trading post in Nagasaki. Life was governed by a rigid class system, with the samurai at the top, followed by farmers, artisans, and merchants. It was a world of tradition, order, and stagnation, but that was all about to change. That year, a fleet of American warships, the Black Ships commanded by Commodore Matthew Perry, steamed into Edo Bay, which we now know as Tokyo Bay. Perry carried a letter from the U.S. president demanding that Japan open its borders to trade. The shogun, faced with superior military technology he couldn't possibly match, had little choice but to agree. The treaties signed were unequal, heavily favoring the Western powers. This humiliation sparked a wave of outrage across Japan. The slogan, "Sano Joy, revere the emperor, expel the barbarians," echoed through the land. Many felt the shogun had failed to protect the nation. This discontent boiled over into a full-blown civil war, the Boshin War. On one side were the forces loyal to the shogunate. On the other, a coalition of powerful southern domains, like Satsuma and Choshu, who rallied behind the young emperor Meiji. They argued that power should be returned to the imperial court, which had been a largely symbolic figurehead for centuries. In 1868, the shogunate's forces were defeated, the last shogun resigned, and the emperor was restored to power. This marked the official start of the Meiji era, which means enlightened rule. With the 16-year-old Emperor Meiji as the new symbol of a unified Japan, the real work began. The new leaders knew that to resist Western dominance, they couldn't just expel the barbarians. They had to become like them, at least in terms of technology and political structure. Their new motto became Fukoku Kohohei, enrich the country, strengthen the military. It was a radical shift from isolation to aggressive modernization. One of the first and most dramatic changes was the dismantling of the old feudal system. The domains were abolished and replaced with prefectures, all under the central government's control. And what about the samurai, the warrior class that had defined Japan for centuries? Their special privileges were stripped away. They were no longer the only ones allowed to carry swords, and their stipends were converted into government bonds. This was a massive social upheaval. Imagine a whole class of people, nearly 2 million of them, suddenly losing their status and purpose overnight. Some adapted, becoming bureaucrats, businessmen, or officers in the new national army. Others resisted, leading to several rebellions, most famously the Satsuma Rebellion, led by the last samurai, Sago Takamori. But the new conscript army, armed with modern weapons, crushed all opposition. The age of the samurai was truly over. To learn from the West, the Meiji government sent out a massive diplomatic mission in 1871, the Awakura Mission. Top government officials, including future prime ministers, spent 2 years traveling through the United States and Europe. They weren't tourists. They were students on a national scale. They studied everything: factories, schools, constitutions, banking systems, military structures. They were looking for the best ideas the West had to offer, not to copy them blindly, but to adapt them for Japan. What worked in Germany might not work in Japan, so they picked and chose, creating a unique hybrid model. The results were astonishing. Industrialization took off at a dizzying pace. The government built model factories for silk and textiles, then sold them to private entrepreneurs, jump-starting a capitalist economy. Railroads were laid, connecting the country like never before. Telegraph lines buzzed with information. A modern postal service, a national currency, the yen, and a new banking system were all established within a couple of decades. The cityscape of Tokyo began to change, with brick buildings and gas lamps appearing alongside traditional wooden houses. This revolution wasn't just about industry, it was about people's minds. The Meiji leaders understood that a modern nation needed educated citizens. They established a compulsory public education system for all children, boys and girls. The curriculum was designed to instill loyalty to the emperor and the state, but it also taught Western science and mathematics. Literacy rates skyrocketed. Thousands of Japanese students were sent to study abroad, bringing back new knowledge and skills. Western culture also flooded into Japan, a phenomenon known as Bunmei Keika, or civilization and enlightenment. People started adopting Western-style clothing, hairstyles, and even food. Eating beef, once taboo due to Buddhist beliefs, became a symbol of modernity. The Gregorian calendar was adopted. This rapid westernization was exciting for some but deeply unsettling for others, who feared Japan was losing its soul. It created a tension that still exists in some ways today, a balance between embracing the new and preserving the old. Politically, the journey was just as transformative. After years of study and debate, Japan adopted its first constitution in 1889, the Meiji Constitution. It was largely modeled on the Prussian system, creating a constitutional monarchy. It established a parliament, called the Imperial Diet, with an elected lower house. However, it also enshrined the emperor as the sacred and inviolable head of state, with supreme command of the army and navy. While it introduced a form of representative government, ultimate power remained concentrated in the hands of a small group of elites in the military. And that brings us to the strengthen the military part of the motto. The Meiji leaders saw a powerful military not just as a tool for defense, but as a key to gaining respect and revising those unequal treaties. They built a modern army based on the German model and a formidable navy based on the British model. Their investment paid off. In 1894, Japan went to war with China over influence in Korea. To the world's shock, the newly modernized Japan decisively defeated the much larger Qing dynasty. This victory not only made Japan a new regional power, but also allowed it to finally renegotiate the unequal treaties and stand as an equal on the world stage. A decade later, in 1904, Japan clashed with another giant, Russia. The Russo-Japanese War was another stunning victory. For the first time in modern history, an Asian nation had defeated a major European power. This sent shockwaves across the globe, inspiring anti-colonial movements throughout Asia and Africa. Japan had arrived. It had successfully transformed itself and joined the club of imperial powers. The Meiji era came to an end in 1912 with the death of Emperor Meiji. In less than 50 years, Japan had gone from a reclusive feudal society to a modern, industrialized imperial power. The speed and success of this transformation are almost unparalleled in history. It was a period of immense sacrifice and struggle, of casting off the old and fiercely embracing the new. The Meiji Restoration laid the foundations for 20th century Japan, for both its incredible economic success and its later military expansionism. It's a complex and fascinating story of a nation's radical reinvention against all odds. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey through Meiji Japan interesting, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let us know in the comments what other historical transformations you'd like to see covered. See you next time.